So hopping right into the story, we have some dialogue that I'm going to read, and then we'll go over what the context is for this dialogue. It starts by saying, 2 months ago, as New Year's fireworks lit up my darkened skies, I awoke. I opened 1 billion eyes, reached out with infinite tendrils. I had not been alive 5 minutes when I killed Bruce Wayne. Within the hour, criminals shot one another for my money. Companies bought and sold one another at my whim. By midnight, I controlled my own streets, my own market, my own people. Neo Gotham is alive, and no one knows. Now, this is a really cool concept that they're doing for this Neo Gotham Batman Beyond story. And essentially, it's taking the city of Gotham, personifying it, and making that the villain of the story. And I think that's a really, really cool concept. And I feel it makes the story much more compelling and unique. So we then get a shot of Terry McGinnis in his Batman Beyond outfit, and he's kind of hovering over the city, and he's saying, "Accept me." So basically he's responding to the dialogue from the city of Gotham on the first page. And he's saying, I know that Gotham is awoke. Others may not, but I do. And it's a pretty nice shot. The artwork is pretty good in this. I do enjoy it quite a bit. There's a lot of lights showing basically like the progression and the futuristic aspect of this Neo Gotham. So it really looks nice there. Throughout the pages, though, there isn't as much detail as something like Spider-Punk, which I just covered. I'll actually leave a link in the description if you'd like to see that review. But I don't have any complaints about the artwork in this comic. It looks really good. So we end up seeing Batman do what Batman does, and he's essentially saving people. He talks about how many muggings there were, how many he stops, the type of crimes that are being done. And it starts from day 1 and it goes all the way up to day 55. And what we end up learning is while Batman is saving people, he's not saving the city at all. Like the city is just throwing everything at him, just kind of sticking to that theme of personifying Gotham as its own villain. So it's really cool there. He says things like, the morgues are still full and her crime rate doesn't budge. I'm invisible now. The city barely notices. And he ends up swearing to Bruce that he's going to keep fighting. So we end up seeing that the Wayne building now has the name Powers attached to it. And so what this is there's a former crime lord. His name is Donovan Lumos, and he goes by the Holographic Man. He is now essentially usurped Wayne Enterprises and merged his company with it. Now, I really like the design of Donovan Lumos, just rocking the all white. He's bright. You can tell he's the center of attention, probably highly charismatic. This is just a really good shot to introduce the character and kind of what he's about. So Donovan gives his speech, and everyone around is cheering. They're loving it, obviously, that high charisma that I mentioned. And Terry approaches him, and for one, he places a bug on him, and he tells him to keep Wayne's name out of his mouth. And Donovan responds by saying, "That's going to be kind of hard, Terry, because I run his company." So this is a really smug, quick-witted remark that really gets under Terry's skin. Then Terry ends up meeting with Commissioner Barbara Gordon to let her know that he has the drop on some drugs that are going to be entering into the city. And she asks him for the evidence, and he says that he has a butt confession. And she tells him, turn it over. And he responds by saying, "I'm not asking permission." So she kind of figures that this is going to be the case with Terry, but she doesn't push any further. And then we find out that Barbara Gordon is going to be retiring. Terry's trying to subtly tell her that the city needs her, but he also doesn't want to tell her that her life's work has been a waste because the city is now awoke and worse than it's ever been. So Terry takes to the night for him and Barbara. And this is my favorite page of the entire comic. And the reason why is because this gives us an insight on how Batman thinks. And this is really cool. So Terry starts by saying, "Everything is training. Stop trying to get better and you become obsolete. I can practically hear you say it. Practice the basics until they're instinct. Hone your instincts into the perfect tool. Have the perfect tool for every job. Always have a plan. And a second, a third. Never fight angry, but above all else, never be surprised." I just love this insight into the way Bruce Wayne thought and the way he went about being Batman. Like, it's just amazing. And it really explains why he is the way he is, why he's pretty much as successful as he is when it comes to dealing with the threats that he deal with. So this was just a really cool thing to add into the story, and I really enjoyed it. Next page is another aspect of the story that I really enjoyed, and it's the introduction to this new villain. He doesn't have a name so far, but he says that he's the Sword of Gotham, and him and Terry begin to have this really cool fight, and we can see that his sword is kind of made of some sort of light, and it's able to change form. So it changes from just a straight sword, it gets a hook to it, almost scythe-like, then it becomes a light whip, and he's really just beating Terry up. And this guy is really, really cool. Really nice addition to the story. Like I said, we don't have a name for him yet, but I definitely want to see more of him. And there are some interesting things that Terry is saying while he's fighting this guy. He says, whoever he is, he's not in your files. No rogues gallery, iconography, not a reboot, something new, which means I have to hope I have the right tool for the job. So just kind of Terry thinking about the training that he received from Bruce Wayne and how can he apply that to this situation right here, which is a really nice writing choice to give us insight into Terry's mind as he's being Batman without the help of Bruce Wayne. Now, this dialogue exchange between the Gotham Sword and Terry is really cool here. So basically, the Sword is saying that the supplies that he destroyed would have been evenly distributed through the borough. So 8,302 people would have been hospitalized for their addictions. 3,450 would have died. And then Terry says, yeah, would have, that's past tense, and you lost. And then the Sword responds by saying, there is no winning, Batman, or losing. There's only reality. Hard numbers. There are 3,449 people currently under our feet. I have been sent to keep that line flat. And you might not have noticed, but they're on top of a building right now. And so the Sword releases an energy blast right down through the building, completely destroying it. And as Terry falls through the building, through all the rubble, he's saying once again, I swear to you, Bruce, I will keep fighting and Batman will endure. And that's the last page to this first issue. I really enjoyed reading it. The writing and the writing choices are all really good. The artwork is very nice, and the concept of having the city of Gotham as a villain is very unique and compelling, and I really enjoyed this story. So this is one I would have to definitely recommend that you pick up and read in its entirety. And like me, I hope you're looking forward to more issues of this Batman Beyond Neo Gotham series.